wrote this last weekend, November 8th, 1992, the anniversary of my father's death, so that'll give you a key into the door. The choice, the gift from my father. And Jesus ain't gonna make it all right. My father was Jesus. I told you that already. The choice, the gift from my father. Better than not knowing. You understand that I will keep doing this until I can rest, like a dog at the races, or a man alive in this awful world. The choice, the gift from my father. My father gave me the trees, he gave me the sun, and a world of assholes, and the option to cut up whatever I've got. Each beer, each joint, each ugly meal, that much closer to the end, that much closer to the truth. And maybe, whether I make the choices now or not does not matter, but eventually it will be made for me. And I know that I will never talk to my father again. 11 October 1992. I am the machine I want. When I look at a cockroach, stoned and drunk, dead or alive, I frown like I am the machine and I want. But I don't get it, and even not even the pain. Just a dead bug or a useless drug. Broken. I am the machine, not the engine, not the planet, not a falling star. I am so tightly wound, so well programmed, I want the pain. This is from November 8th again. Convicted. 1 billion years fighting and more to come. One man says he stands taller than another because his hat is more expensive. And he has 2 mistresses. And he likes to fight. He likes it when a world's native comes screaming down his arm and cuts off the smiling head, the offering hand. It's all there for you. But where the fuck is the love? Is this some lame excuse, this love? Is this a ruse planted by poets at the dawn of time when the first one realized what a bunch of assholes we are? Where the fuck is the love? I don't feel it. Not on the subway, not at the dumb job, not in the poetry I read. Where the fuck is the love? When he slices up his own kid and feeds it to the family dog. This shit happens every minute. Where the fuck is the love?
Sean Flaherty passed away January 4th of this new year. He was a poet, and he spent the remainder of his time putting together a series of poems about his experience with cancer. A couple of weeks before, this was at the end of December of 2014, I reached out to Sean to see if he could join me for a podcast. I figured he might want to read some of his poetry. He wrote me back saying, "Hi, David. I'm sorry, but I'm really too busy. Thank you for thinking of me." I was like, I can wait. No big deal. I wasn't aware of the severity of his condition because he always kept a stiff upper lip and a sense of humor about himself. I thought he was going to be fine. Bronwyn thought he was going to be fine, but then came the news. I had unresolved feelings about him. We were very much alike. Both Irish, both assholes, contemptuous, rife with creatively bitter energies that we tried to channel in various forms. I felt like we had all the time in the world to get to be friends. I wrote on his timeline after we got the news that I felt like such a piece of shit, and I really do. I still do, because we can rail against the deficiencies of life, we can complain, we can bitch and moan, but it all means nothing in the end. Instead, the real fight is the race to the finish. And all that's left is the sweating and aching flesh as proof of your existence. Usually we hit that finish line in later years with arthritic hands, loose bowels, and thinning hair. We don't lose the race at 48. We're not supposed to lose the race at 48. You're not supposed to die at 48. And it isn't right. So I decided I should try to do right by my issues because I saw a lot of myself in him, especially the anger. I feel that we both possess a low tolerance for ignorance in any form. And even if we didn't know it at the time, we were making people laugh. We were making people fall in love with us. But we're very slow to learn of our impact on other people. So I got some friends together. Some people Sean didn't even know. People like Colin and Andrew and Mark, my daughter. Everything was so slapdash and impromptu, I think he would approve. So what I did was try to put the voice to the words. Thinking, now who could read this well? Colin would sound great with the iced tea poem, and Andrew lived in Brooklyn. And he has a sharp voice that would lend well to the biting commentary of It's Not You, It's Me. Autumn Leaves make me think of Eve Kerrigan. Mark Jeacoma is memory, ideas like that, you know. I was talking to Eve the other day, and I told her when I first heard his poetry, we had all gone to a function to hear him read his poetry, and I was thinking after the reading, I'm not a poetry guy. I'm not hip with this scene. But as time passes, I find I am a poetry guy in a way. The words work on me at my age now that they never did when I was a younger man. Actually, he would probably approve, but he would also mutter under his breath, get over it. So without further ado, I give you Sean Flaherty, as read by Colin Hall, Andrew Ganke, Mark Jeacoma, Eve Kerrigan, Regan Lawler, and Bronwyn Knox.
Good evening. My name is Colin Hall. I will be reading a piece by an individual known as Sean Flaherty. The title is Iced Tea Spit on My Foot. I have been going to night school after work so I can learn some new things to broaden myself at 43. I met this roofer at school who told me that all the roofers and electricians he knows do boatloads of cocaine. And he'd been doing too much roofing and too much cocaine. So he's trying to learn computer programming to get a new gig. Ice-T is in our school to study for a new role. I stopped him when we were all stepping out for a break and said, "Hey, man, I don't know if we ever met, but I helped you and Coco with that thing a few years ago." So we hung out for a bit, talked, mostly about music. We were sitting down, and I took my shoe off to work out a pebble. He was talking about a new band he's working with and that they were listening to a lot of Michael Jackson lately. He said he was awesome. He was one of the very best. And I injected, "Too bad about all that stuff with the kids." Ice-T stopped talking. He looked at me like I was crazy, like I had vomited fire. He spit on my foot, stood up, turned his back, walked away and said, "Fuck you, Flaherty."
This is Mark Jeacoma, and I am going to be reading Striking from the Western Side by Sean Flaherty. The addictive aroma of a well-aged nostalgia and a hurricane-yellow sunset was striking from the western side, the east full of forest. It often goes unappreciated, sat alone and gritting his teeth over it, his forehead wet, losing patience, sweating droplets, wiping up by the dollars you couldn't afford to spend, outwardly expressing overwhelmed. Born of the burning woods and left to ash, again, with the leaves, the scent settled, clearly set on sticking around. in the mood to bleed and drag some metal through the dirt caked on your legs? Filth burns brighter indoors, and my power's just gone out. But you cast quite a shadow. When lightning interrupts the black, stormed been on its way for a while, I'm relieved it's finally hit us. Fair weather felt dishonest. Long hair's got a few more days left in it. Bags under his eyes not quite full. Intent on the ideal and going out on his shield. Decrying the curse of the underemployed. Barking beckons him back, and beneath his broken heart beating, beyond a reasonable doubt, buggering on, enthusiastically enthusiastic, the howled wolves and selected drum lines, droning, diligent, and pleased to meet you, darling. He flips open one of his boxes, counts to 17 in size, puts a cigarette between his lips, lights it, counts to 16 and sighs. Closes that box and buys another. 1/3 of what he says is nonsense, but when you talk, he listens. And love's a vice he can't help but nourish, hiding in fog and drowning in his cheap whiskey, perfectly cornered, writing a poem about it.
My name is Regan Lawler, and this is I Dated a Weather Girl by Sean Flaherty. She could be seen on Channel 225, touching numbers, pushing clouds with her perfectly manicured hands across America. She got prettier the closer she got. Men tried to walk away from their TV screens, but as soon as she got closer to their cities, they'd catch fire. Their hands would be burning, their hair would go up in flames. For the Weather Girl from WPIX. Thank you.
This is Eve Kerrigan, and I'm reading Autumn Leaf and John by Sean Flaherty. Autumn Leaf was born on an ashram up north on a piece of land her parents owned. John was a math guy making Wall Street money. They both lived in the city. Radiation levels were getting too high. Babies grew too big in the womb, often killing the mother, leaving the children feeble or worse, and vexing Mendelian mutations were occurring to a variety of the citizens. Accountants were spawning extra eyes, extra hands, and did away with sleep cycles. Bicycle messengers were growing longer legs. Strippers had tails stretching out of their tailbones. Autumn Leaf had a tail. John had an extra thumb on each hand. They met and fell in love at a doctor's office in Midtown. John had a thing for her tail. The fucking was epic. Autumn Leaf's parents allowed the two a house on a plot of land. The mutations hadn't started up north, but, away from the city, all their time piled up on one another. Their love distorted. One day, after another dismal effort to be intimate, John sat at his desk wearing a green V-neck t-shirt and white boxers with watermelons printed on them, eating an apple, looking over some old work papers. Autumn Leaf walked up to John's desk, her tail twitching, whipping back and forth. She looked at John and told him she didn't love him anymore. The length of his tongue flapped out of his mouth, bits of apple falling onto his desk. His face turned bright red, his eyes bulged. He watched with his left eye as the right eye shot out of his head into a corner. The top of his skull cracked open, the explosion splattering the robin's egg blue walls of the room with pieces of his hot brain.
This is Andrew Ganke reading It's Not You, It's Me by Sean Flaherty. I put my daughter to bed, kiss my wife, and take an easy walk to get some groceries and a bag of beer at Driggs in North 8th. The ground gets hot, and the air smells like cinnamon. Across from the liquor store, a bright light shines on a parking spot where a flying saucer sets down. Beautiful, symmetrical, stainless steel gull-wing doors open. Wearing a navy blue suit and black wingtips that look an awful lot like the ones in my closet, a green man steps out of the ship. He looks around, pretending to be careful, and he steps towards me, touches the side of his nose, fixes his red tie, and says, "Look, I'm not from where you might think I'm from. Not up. I'm from the other place. I just like the way this thing handles. I wanted to find you so I can look you in the eye and let you know that when you're not looking, I'm the guy who's fucking you. I snort lines of cocaine from your baby's round belly when she's asleep in her crib. I strangle your cats until they can barely breathe so they sound asthmatic. I make love to your wife better than you, and she can't stand you. And I talk shit about everyone you know. I told the landlord to get bent. I told your boss to take a hike. You think you're tired now, man, and I'm gonna burn you down from every angle possible. I pull a pair of beers from the bag. I open them up. I hand him one. Take one for myself. I take a good long drink out of the bottle before I look down at his pointy green nose and say, "Thanks for the heads up. I'm glad it's you and not me."
Hi, this is Bronwyn Knox, and I'm reading The Doctor Part 1 by Sean Flaherty. I have always sought my own extreme emotions, threatening people, often with love, asking if it means enough to you. Do you trust me enough? If you'll spread your legs wide enough for me to see your liver. I am breathing heavily now. Not hard, listening to the sound of my own breath, following the idiosyncrasies of the air, passing in and out. The fear and fasting turning the air colder on the way in. Waiting for the doctor to reach up inside me. This is Bronwyn Knox, and I'm going to read The Doctor, Part 20 by Sean Flaherty. A call from the right place, I suppose. A long-distance motherfucker jammed my signal, shook me with the words, "Miracle Doctor," with the words, "Miracle Cure," with the words, "If you were my son, I'd fly you to Las Cruces tomorrow," jolted my fear, made me check my balance, and pissed me off.
This is a section of a tribute that was written and read by Kieran Cooper at a function for Sean in February. I was unable to attend. I was very ill. But Kieran kindly passed this on to me, so I'll read some of it. Sean was never one to squander a chance. He took chances in everything he did, whether it was open up his inner self to the world through his poetry, to tell off someone he didn't like, to tell someone he loved that he loved them, or to ask Cecilia, his wife, out of the blue, unknown and unannounced, to go on a date with him sometime. And these chances he took changed his life. Sean was marvelous, and as he left this life, I know that the gods indeed delighted in him, as did I, as did we all, because Sean knew his life while he had it. He saw life in all its purest and most raw and horrifying beauty. And he reflected all of what he saw and felt and feared and loved through his poetry and his friendships. And I thank the gods for giving Sean the chances he took, and for giving me also the chance to know him as I did. This particular episode of BlissVille, Misadventures in BlissVille, had a fairly long production life. Because in my interviews, I had to get the poetry together, pick the best or at least my favorite pieces, and record these bits while working on other episodes, while working on my essays and articles, and generally trying to keep busy. I know some fairly fantastic people, and I got to know more people in my associations. What occurs to me now, only now, is that Sean Flaherty had such an incredible impact on the people in his life. He was truly loved, and part of love is understanding and forgiveness, the biggest parts of love and respect. He was a human being. He wanted to love and be loved. He got what he wanted in life, as far as I'm concerned. This has been BlissVille, Misadventures in BlissVille. I'm David Lawler, and I want to thank Colin Hall, Andrew Ganke, Eve Kerrigan, Mark Jeacoma, my wife Bronwyn, my daughter Regan, for joining me with this very special episode.